Yeah, what I think's fantastic is a lot of our young people wouldn't know the questions to ask and mightn't know what they're experiencing. So actually having a book they can go and read and digest in their own time that's written by two beautiful, fantastic voices that are mentoring them really, where their parents mightn't have the skills to. That's how I see it. Like their parents, like you're giving them the information and the tools to understanding their experiences. I mean, imagine if you'd had that book as a young teen.
Oh, yeah, it would have been amazing. My audience for my books is my 15-year-old self most of the time.
That's so powerful. Well, that's how I felt when I read that book. I felt like this is the book. If you were 15, you'd want this because it just gives you it answers all the confusion and questions and makes it very clear and supportive. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sue Larkey podcast. As I always say, you have to embrace difference to make a difference. Let's dive into today's podcast. Well, welcome, everybody. I am so excited to have Yenn joining us today, who's been with us before. They are an autism advocate and author. And today we're going to share all Yenn's exciting news. So many great things are happening. So welcome, Yenn.
Oh, thank you so much, Sue. And hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be back again.
Yeah. So last time we talked, I had a look. It was back in episode 74, where we discussed my favorite book, which at the time you didn't have a lot of books out, but it was the one on what I use for preparing kids for work and transition post-school, which The Wonderful World of Work. Is that what I was?
Wonderful World of Work.
Yeah, and I love that book, and I refer so many people to it because it has so many good ideas. But since then, how many books are we up to?
I believe, including the 4 that are in production and are coming out early next year, I think it's 17. In fact, it is
17 books, which is absolutely fantastic because not only that, you're out speaking, you've got a job, you've got so many amazing things happening. So I'm really excited to share lots of those things that are happening. But the book I just read this week was Planning Your Career Through Intense Interests, which builds so well on the other one. So what made you write this one? What inspired this one?
This one, so Barb Cook is the co-author and is amazing. If you haven't seen Barb's work, make sure you do because she's wonderful. So Barb and me were approached by our publisher, Jessica Kingsley, and they said, could you write a book on passion and interest in employment for autistic young adults? And we said, yes, we can. And we did, and it was good.
Yeah, no, but I think it's fabulous. And what I like, when I looked at the lists, which was like, it's on, I'm just looking at page 31, it had like lists of how you can turn music into a career, gaming, science, film, sports. I know a neurodivergent person who has all those jobs. Like every one of them, I'd be like, oh, one of my students does that. I know a student. And it was just so nice to see it all listed. Does that, because parents often ask me, what is my child going to do with their gaming? And I'm like, yes.
Oh, absolutely. Gaming is a fantastic thing because you've got coding that can come out of that. You can work on game engines and things like that. And graphic design. I've got a friend who's autistic and they're a really keen gamer, and they're also a graphic design professional. And those two things have gone really well together, and they've got their own business and they've got 2 jobs as well. And it's lovely. And I think that idea of, oh, my child is autistic, they're never going to amount to anything. I think we need to turn that on its head because actually not only is that not true, the opposite of true is true. If you're autistic and you have a passion, doesn't take a lot of thinking in order to see ways in which that passion can become your job. My passion is autism advocacy, and I'm also quite passionate about working in government administration. And I'm an autism advocate and I'm a public servant, and those things make perfect sense for me.
100%. And what I think is really important when parents often say to me, oh, all my child wants to do is game, I go, you're lucky. They've found their autistic joy, they've found their passion. Let's just use that for everything. I would, because families whose children haven't found that And I know you've written a lot of books on mental health, and it's not my expertise, but I often find when children are having a mental health crisis, their passions disappear. I don't know about your experience, but I always say, I think when they've got their passion, it's a good sign on their overall health.
We need to think differently about passions, because, I mean, I've got a meme that I've shared a few times now, and the picture is knitting needles and a knitted thing. And I say, when my friend, before people know my friend is autistic, they call her knitting a hobby. When they find out she's autistic, they call it an obsession. So there's a problem. Also, a passion gets mixed up with a problem. So I had a parent of a young girl say to me once, oh, she's obsessed with the hand dryers in the bathroom. She wasn't obsessed with them at all. She was terrified of them because they were loud and obnoxious, and I'm with her on that. I don't like them much either. So that kind of thing, we're conflating the negative with the positive. But when you say it's an obsession, well, that's loaded. We were talking before about phases. It's loaded. It's what you say if something's a deviation from the norm. It's not something you say in a positive way. But as you say, a lot of autistic passions are really positive. And even the ones that aren't can be steered into a positive direction. When I was a teenager, I had a passion for politics. Now, what that meant was that I went and joined the socialists when I was 14, which maybe not ideal. But I'm sure there were lots of other ways that my parents and teachers could have steered me towards, where politics was not a negative thing, but was actually a really positive interest for me. And
yeah, but as we say, you have to go through that phase. You had to go through that phase of trying out the socialist and probably learnt a lot of things. We've all, like in my teens, I made some bad mistakes and had some great learning from it. I mean, that's why we're teenagers, isn't it? And I just think sometimes for students in the classroom and also children at home, they're under the microscope. People overreact to the smallest thing, and it's just so unfair because one child doesn't hand in their homework, but they have the social skills to go, oh, sorry, Mrs. Larkey. A neurodivergent child doesn't hand in their homework and everyone starts catastrophizing. It's like, seriously, stop it.
Absolutely. And everything's very pathologized. I remember being at a conference once, and this, I think it was a clinician speaking, and she said, oh, yes, this client was really resistant to using the telephone. And I remember thinking, that's very pathologized language. Yeah. If I was got an autistic kid, it would be they don't like using the phone. But when you're autistic or neurodivergent in other ways too, everything you do becomes pathologized, and everything is seen through the lens of autism and through the lens of therapy and fixing and all of those things, whereas actually a little bit of understanding, a little bit of listening might address that thinking, because really we're not... The other one that gets me... Sorry.
Go. I love chatting to you and hearing all your thoughts.
Yeah, the other one that gets me is, I've lost it now.
That's all right. We can come back to it. Because I want to come back to the book. The other thing I think that's like you mentioned about people building their own businesses and being entrepreneurial. I think people aren't looking enough at that, particularly now with the working from home model and the gig economy. I think we need to often give our young people the skills to run their own business and giving them the scaffolding and understanding. But you can do an online course now about setting up your own business. Like, you don't have to go and see people face to face.
And people start their own businesses without any training whatsoever. It's just like they see a need, they fill the need. Business can be a great thing for autistic people, especially if you're not that keen on small talk or working in an office. Or I work in an office, so I'm fine with it. But a lot of autistic people find that sort of more traditional model of work very stressful. It doesn't play to their strengths. Whereas a business, if it's a small business, you don't even have to employ anyone. You can just do it yourself. There's the wonderful example of Kaiko Fidgets, and they got a business for the young person because they were struggling at school, I think, and this business became their outlet. And it's now huge. They all over the world. I got I did a consultancy with them, and then it's amazing. And that was just an interest that kid had in making fidget toys, and it's now become, a really reputable and presumably profitable business. I
Yeah.
had a business when I used to get very anxious about work, so I didn't work for many, many years because I was such a perfectionist that if I made a mistake, it was like the world was going to end. And so one way to build my confidence to get back into the workforce was to have a small business. And I did. I did video editing. So I was studying art at university. And a lot of my fellow art student colleagues wanted videos done but weren't very good at doing it. So I had a camera and a very nice computer. And I did for a couple of years. I did freelance video editing, production, and I wasn't actually that good at it, but
I'm sure you were but and I think this is where you underestimate your skills. For someone like me that wouldn't know where to start, I'm sure you're amazing. Like, I have to outsource that stuff because I'm not a perfectionist. So I would put stuff out to the universe that was terrible.
Well, I have a few memorable things that I probably shouldn't have put in the word. I had lovely Polly Samuel, who used to be my mentor,
Yes.
around that time, and she got me to do a bunch of videos for her, which she sold. She sold them as DVDs, and
I love it.
It was lovely.
Yeah. But I was
Well,
looking in this book, and I like you share your own experience of doing volunteer work, which I know is also in the wonderful world of work book too. And particularly because this is coming out over summer, hopefully. Well, it will be over summer when people hear this. But my thinking is that volunteer work gives the confidence, and it just builds, like, your tips in here are really helpful. But it also, if it lets a young person know that it takes a lot of the myths away about work, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Volunteering is, I mean, there is an issue with it, in that it shouldn't be used to replace paid roles.
No, 100%.
It really shouldn't. But for a lot of autistic young people particularly, volunteering is a really good step in the path to employment. When I wrote my books with Emma Goodall about resilience for parents, one of the elements we identified relating to resilience is controlled challenges. So building in place incrementally slightly more difficult things. And things like social stories go to that. So building in knowledge and increasing levels of knowledge about something. Now, volunteering is the employment version, or can be the employment version, of a controlled challenge around employment. And I used myself, when I couldn't work, I used a volunteer job as well. So what I did was got a volunteer job, got the business, got a job collecting for a charity, which was just a everyday sort of job, and then got my public service job. So it was like stepping stones, and each one was slightly less scary. And by the time I got to 2006, when I haven't got a copy here, but I had my autobiography came out in 2006. 3 months after that, I applied for 2 graduate positions in the public service, and I was successful, and it was
so good. I do have all your books on my website, and I'll make sure we link to all of them. And I do recommend people read your first book. And I feel like your latest TED Talk that hopefully will be out soon, which, congratulations, amazing to be invited back to do one. Now, I do recommend everyone follows your blog. I think it's and your Facebook page. But I had a quick look on your blog. Am I right that the TED Talk is, well, tell us, what's the TED Talk about?
So the TED Talk, I haven't got a title for it yet.
That's why I was struggling. Thank you, because I kept looking, going, what's the title? Okay, so yeah.
There is no title yet. They haven't uploaded it online.
Okay.
They will in the next couple of months. It should be here. I'd be surprised if it's not out by February, but we'll see. So this one, I gave a TED Talk in 2013, TEDx Canberra, about resilience and disability, and particularly resilience and autism. And then last year, my lovely friend, Christina Ryan, who's the CEO of the Disability Leadership Institute, she gave a TED Talk on merit-based recruitment, and she asked me to come along as her +1. So I did, because I like Christina. She's awesome. And I really wanted to see her do her thing on the TEDx stage. She did, and it was good. And at the end of the day, I stayed all day. I thought it was wonderful. And I thought, I need to do this again, I think. So I had to think about it. And I contacted the one person I knew who was still on the books of TEDx Canberra after 10 years. And I said, look, I went along, I got bitten by the TED bug, I want to do some more. And so they invited me to the open mic night. And so I went to the open mic night and did my thing. I did a 3-minute pitch. And they got back to me a couple of weeks later and said, you're in. And I was very excited. And so my talk was about autism and gender diversity, specifically the idea of autigender, so a separate neurotype of being autistic and gender divergent. And I first of all, talked about what autigender is, then talked about some of my own experience, then talked about the prevalence of bigotry and hatred, then talked about how I want a better world and what that better world would look like, and then gave some examples of where I've seen things improved so that, the better world is attainable. And I finished up doing a little example of my good friend Lisbeth, who was in the audience. And so I gave I said to the audience, imagine that you're autigender yourself and you're looking for a new friend. And so what do you want in a friend? You probably want one who's maybe neurodivergent, that would make sense, and maybe transgender, that would make sense. Marginalised sexuality, good idea, probably not a Christian. And then I say, but the problem is you've made this friend, you've made your friend, looking at your list. We'll call your friend Lisbeth. How about that? We'll imagine your friend's name is Lisbeth. And then I went through this whole spiel about it and everything, and how Lisbeth didn't satisfy any of the attributes that I'd asked for, but was actually the best ally you could ever imagine. And I went on to say, could you imagine if Lisbeth's up the front in the white shirt or up the back in the green top, or maybe they're sitting next to you, maybe they are you, so, but totally hypothetical. No, someone like that couldn't possibly exist. And then I said, well, the thing is, I might be autistic and we're not supposed to tell fibs, but I've been telling fibs. Lisbeth was not just a figment of my imagination made up to prove a point. Lisbeth is a real person, and I'm not going to point her out because I reckon she's embarrassed enough.
Oh, I'm all tingly. This is so beautiful, Yenn. I love it.
The funny thing was, Lisbeth was there, and afterwards all these people came up to her and said, oh, did Yenn ask you if it was all right to say?
I love it. I love it. Well, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. And congratulations. It's massive to do a TED Talk. Now, you've also had your trans and teens book come out since we last talked. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about that one? Awesome. I love the cover and I love the name.
Nice arm with the new tattoo.
Yes, we'll get time to talk about that. So tell me about that book. Tell me.
So this is another one that I got asked to write. It's lovely when your publisher asks you to write things. It's very flattering. You're sort of doing something right. So this one I wrote in 2020. I had a book come out with Tanya Masterman, who's a local Canberra author and good friend of mine. And Tanya and me wrote this book called The Awesome Autistic Go-To Guide, which was a book aimed at basically tweens who are autistic, and it was all about positive self-knowledge and understanding what it is to be an autistic kid, and lots of positivity, lots of inclusion, lots of nice things. And then a couple of years later, I wrote a book with, or maybe the next year, I wrote a book with Yenn called the Autistic and Trans Guide to Life, or the Trans and Autistic Guide to Life. I can never remember which.
Yeah.
We wrote that together, Yenn and me, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have one for teens that was about gender diversity? So I contacted the publisher and said, would you be interested in a book, a similar one to the Awesome Autistic Go-To Guide, but for transgender and non-binary kids? And the publisher said, oh, we were going to ask you to write that anyway. So I roped in one of the lovely people from the ICANN network, Sam Rose. And
fantastic.
Sam and I worked together on this book, which was lovely. It's Sam's first book, so they were very happy about that. And it's basically a practical book for under autistic teens. It's got lots
great.
of I'm just looking at the list of different people, different kind of identities within transgender. I'm talking about pride.
What I think is fantastic is a lot of our young people wouldn't know the questions to ask and mightn't know what they're experiencing. So actually having a book they can go and read and digest in their own time, that's written by two beautiful, fantastic voices that are mentoring them, really, where their parents mightn't have the skills to. That's how I see it. Like their parents, like you're giving them the information and the tools to understanding their experiences. I mean, imagine if you'd had that book as a young teen.
Oh, yeah, it would have been amazing. My audience for my books is my 15-year-old self most of the time.
That's so powerful. Well, that's how I felt when I read that book. I felt like this is the book. If you were 15, you'd want this because it just gives you it answers all the confusion and questions and makes it very clear and supportive.
It's important to know that it's okay to question. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to not be right or wrong or anywhere in between, and that questioning is fine. And knowing who you are is a lifelong journey. It's not something you're going to instantly know. Well, for some people it is, but for other people, it's difficult to come to those understandings of who you are. And that journey to getting there is a beautiful thing.
100%. Now, the other thing, I want to talk about your books, I want to talk about TED, but I also want to talk about, I love your little memes or your little, what do you call them? Your little...
Memes. I call them memes because a number of people, pedantic people, contacted me online and said they're not memes because they're not funny. And I thought, well, I actually Googled it, and a meme doesn't need to be funny. But anyway, I thought, well, if people have got an issue, I'll call them memes because that doesn't exist yet. And so nobody could criticize me, although I was wrong. I've underestimated the power of trolling on the internet because... Recently, I had someone say, I don't know all this Yenski Yeem nonsense. What's all this about? I'm like, if you're on my page, there's a really easy thing you can do if you don't like being on my page. You just click unfollow, and then you won't see anything else that I write ever again. And you'll be happy. I'll be happy.
Exactly. I hear you. I'm like, I'm not for you. I'm not for everyone. I'm just like, if you want to join me, join me. If you want to be part of my community, be part of it. But really, off you go. But yeah, the trolls are horrible. But the one I love that you recently had and got 1,000 likes, including me, was
lots of likes,
autistic communication isn't wrong. It is different and valid. Tell me, what was your thinking with that?
Oh, look, I find so many people think that you're doing it wrong. They do. They think, oh, this person communicates different to me, so they must be getting it wrong. And it can have a huge impact on your life when people assume one thing that you're saying, and in reality, you're saying something else. And people often don't even understand that there are different communication styles. I mean, the thing about being autistic, you learn a lot about communication and empathy and all the stuff we're not meant to do well, but we actually just do differently to other people.
100%.
And I find that is a real issue, that people just make these assumptions because they've got no concept. It's like, I was giving this example about privilege, and it's a similar thing. So I have a friend who used to work in a government department, and her boss was a white, cisgender, heterosexual, able-bodied man. All the privileges. And he was putting together a speaker list for a conference that the department was organising. And he showed it to my friend who was working for him. And she said, you've got no women, you've got no people of colour. And this fellow said, oh, what amazing insight. How do you know that? And that's the thing. Privilege is not a bad thing, but it becomes a bad thing when people don't realise they're privileged. And that's exactly the same with autistic communication. People don't realise that some people communicate differently, and that's perfectly fine. And learn, I see it as a culture. I see it as a different language. You can learn other languages.
100%. And you have to, if you see it as a different culture, it makes it easy, actually. Like, it's a bit like the whole eye contact debate. Not that we want to spend half an hour talking about that, but I say there's lots of cultures that don't give eye contact. Like, really, like, it's just a culture, and And different people are comfortable. And as you say, some children have learned it. It doesn't mean they like it, do you know? And I think we have to respect that they might have been taught to do it, but it doesn't make it right. Does that, you know?
Absolutely. No, it's interesting. And it is, because we're on the receiving end of it, we become very knowledgeable about all this stuff, more so than most people do.
Yeah, but I also think that's why we must remember that for many of our children, particularly in school, why they're often exhausted. They might start the day off quite well, but by lunchtime be exhausted, and call it masking, call it what, but actually with so many things I do naturally and don't have to think about, this child is actually having to process and think more deeply about. So of course you'll be more exhausted, just like learning another language or being on holidays in a different culture. It's more exhausting because you don't know all the rules and what's going on.
I always say I'm an expatriate. I'm an autistic expatriate. So
I love that.
A strange country with strange customs, but I have to learn them in order to be accepted. Well, I don't have to. I can choose not to. And sometimes I do choose not to, but it can get a bit difficult.
Yeah, but that's why your advocacy role is so special, Yenn, because you're able to wear that advocacy hat in a compassionate way for everybody. Does like you're not trolling or being that strong. You're being a strong autistic voice that shares your lived experience in such a positive way to rise everyone up, you know, which is really what your TED talks about by the sounds of things.
Oh, absolutely. It's very affirming. Everyone loves my stuff. Well, not everyone. Some people hate my stuff, but most.
No, we don't care about them. Now, I want to hear about your tattoo before we have to go. So everybody, Yenn yesterday got an amazing tattoo, and we were just chatting about it before. It is, have a look on their page. It's sunflowers. Talk us through what's on it for because we don't.
What's on it? So it's sunflowers and peonies. Peonies because I like them. Sunflowers because my cat is called Sunflower. So I have 3 sunflowers on my forearm. It's just the whole of my left forearm. So it's a half sleeve. I have not had a tattoo since 1997. This one has got 2 butterflies, and the butterflies are blue and pink, which is the trans flag colours. So they're pride butterflies. And a butterfly is also a trans symbol because it's a symbol of transformation, because butterflies turn from a caterpillar into a butterfly. And the bodies of the butterflies are little semicolons. And the meaning of that is beautiful. So if you imagine you are the author of the book that is your life, and things get really difficult, and you think, I need to finish my book now. I need to put a full stop and have no more book. But then you think, well, I don't know what's yet to come, so I'll pop in a semicolon and keep going. So it's a very profound and beautiful thing. And it's black lines. She's done an amazing job. If you're in Canberra and you want to get a tattoo, go to Freestyle Studio in Civic and ask for Lishi, because she's amazing. I was in the chair for 6 hours. I managed right up until the end, and I'm like, just finish it already. But no, she did it in one sitting. It was really good.
It does look fabulous. And I was saying to Yenn earlier, I could not sit still for 6 hours, let alone 6 hours of pain. So
they were very impressed with me. They kept saying, oh, you're not even moving. And so, but yeah, it's just pain. You get through it. It's not permanent. When she stopped tattooing, she'd do a little bit and then get more ink. And so it wasn't painful entirely for 6 hours. It was probably painful for 4 hours. But it's okay. I'm very
wow. Well, congratulations on everything you're doing, from your TED Talk, from your books to your new beautiful tattoo. And thank you for sharing us. I hope that everyone's got some insights. And I would say your biggest takeaways are, if you're not currently getting Yenn's blog, make sure you sign up for it. And if you're not following Yenn on Facebook, please do, because you will get little inspiration and amazing, even thought-provoking little things in your Facebook that will help you.
The Purkis Neurodiversity page is the Facebook page. I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to connect.
Okay.
And X, which used to be Twitter. And I'm also on Instagram, but I never go in there. So if you
okay, that makes sense. I will make sure I link to all of those, and I'll share some screenshots on my Facebook page too of your books and your tattoo. But I really appreciate you. Yeah, hold that one up too. I really appreciate you sharing with us today. And the other thing I'd encourage everyone to keep an eye out for next year, there's a whole series of the awesome Autistic Guide to Being Proud, Other Humans, Guide to Feelings and Emotions. Yeah. So
with Tanya as well. They do look set to be whopping bestsellers. So we're very happy about that. This one here, it's the original. Yes. This one, I believe, has sold 20,000 copies. So
congratulations. That's amazing. That's beyond a bestseller. I think a bestseller is like 5,000, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've got 3 bestsellers at the moment. It's weird, isn't it? When I wrote the first one, nobody knew who I was. It was wonderful. But like now, I went to an author event in Canberra for Spring Out, which is our Pride Festival in Canberra. And there were 4 queer authors, or 3 queer authors and 1 queer editor. And I was talking to one of them. I'd never even heard of them. And I said, oh, yes, everyone loves Yenski. I'm thinking, I don't even know who you are. They all know me.
Well, it's a credit to you for all you're doing. So thank you for your time. I can't wait to see what's coming next. So congratulations on everything.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well.
My pleasure.
I hope you've got some great tips and strategies to make a difference. Remember, strategies wear out and not every strategy works for everybody. If you're ready to dive in deeper to more strategies and ideas to make a difference, I'd highly recommend you consider Dr. Tony Attwood or my online courses. For more information, visit my website www.sulaki.com.au.